All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining Museum Hue today. For those of you that are new to Museum Hue, we are a member-driven organization based in New York City that is dedicated to uplifting people of color in the arts and culture field by offering tools and resources in a supportive environment. We really celebrate cultural diversity in the arts and aim to create pathways for emerging professionals in the field. For those that are members, welcome back. Thank you for joining our third session of the Hueniversity Career Jumpstart series. Today's session is the third of 4 virtual workshops that we are hosting this fall that consists of conversations with experts in the field who have been providing insight into their career pathways, resume and cover letter best practices, and today is all about internship preparation and more. So we're really excited for today's conversation with our speakers. And please stay tuned via our mailing list and our website for upcoming events and such. We will be hosting an in-person Career Jumpstart convening in January. So more to come on that, but we're really excited and hope our speakers and you can join us for that event. Before I introduce our amazing speakers today, I also want to highlight Museum Hue's membership offerings. For early Huers, it is $20 for the year, and you get access to free programming from Museum Hue, free admission to our Hueseum tours that we host at different institutions around New York City, and access to all prior recordings and upcoming resources and recordings. So we really hope, if you're interested, that you take a look at membership. I am so excited to now introduce our wonderful panelists for today for our conversation. So thank you, Laura Louise Bacchus and Kiona Tucker, for joining us. I want to briefly intro our speakers and their bios before we jump into the conversation. So starting with Kiona, Kiona is an educator, historian, and proud museum professional in New York City. Currently, she serves as the Education, Internships, and Fellowships Coordinator at the New York Historical Society and is a graduate of St. John's University. She has worked in several museums across New York City. A Virginia native, she credits her love of history to growing up in the historic triangle and aims to make history education fun, engaging, and accessible. So Kiona, if you want to give a little wave so folks see you.
Hi. Hello.
Thank you for joining us. And then Laura Louise Bacchus. It has served communities in New York City and New Haven as an educator in museums, schools, and community organizations. She has designed and led gallery discussions and studio programs for museum visitors and community partners of diverse ages, backgrounds, and all abilities. Laura received her bachelor's degree at Pepperdine University in Art and Art History, as well as her master's from Yale University in Material Culture and Religion. She has also worked as an educator at the Yale University Art Gallery, MoMA, the Museum of Moving Image, and currently manages teen programs at the Guggenheim Museum. Laura is passionate about supporting youth development, especially cultivating agency through arts education, sustainable museum practices, as well as creative partnerships across museum departments and community organizations. And I have been so lucky to be able to work with Laura. She was my former manager at the Guggenheim, so I'm so appreciative that she is here to talk all about internships today. I saw you gave a little wave, Laura. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's so good to be with this group. I'm excited.
So I'm going to jump right into our amazing conversation today. I would love to start off the discussion by hearing from both of you a bit more about your internship programs that you run at your institutions and just give a little background on your work. So I'll start off with you, Kiona.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited to be here with everyone. So the New York Historical Society's College and Graduate Internship Program is one of a couple of different programs that we have that are aimed towards students. So we do also offer teen internships, which are centered in the digital humanities, and we also offer teen internships that are centered within our family programs department. So 2 opportunities for teens in particular to learn about the scale of museum administration, to learn about the scale of digital humanities and incorporating that into museum spaces. For our programs, I oversee the programs that are related to college and graduate students, so everyone from first semester freshmen all the way up to doctoral candidates. So we do serve a wide breadth of students. Our internship program runs pretty much year round. We have 3 separate cohorts, one in the fall, one in the spring, and one in the summer. They're all part-time and they're all paid, and all of them are quite hands-on. They're hybrid at the moment, but all of them provide opportunities for interns to be in the museum, actually working on site with our programs, and then a lot of cases with our collections as well. They also very heavily incorporate professional development. A big goal of the program is for you to not only get the experience within whatever department it is that you're working in, but also to get a more robust experience of what it means to work, not just in a museum, but to work in the arts and culture field at large. So that can take the form of having different colleagues from the New York Historical Society come and talk a little bit about their career pathway and talk about their job, all the way to visiting other institutions that differ from the New York Historical Society to learn about the different aspects of museums that one could become involved in. So our programs are really set up so that we can serve everyone, from those who just want to kind of dip their feet in, if you will, for museum work. You know museums exist, maybe you've been to one, you think it might be a cool place to work, and you want to get just this baseline understanding of what happens in museums, all the way up to those who are in their third or fourth year of training to do very highly specific things, like conservationists and so on and so forth, and putting those skills that you get in the classroom into really practical application within the lab or within any number of different spaces. So our museum internships for college and graduate students really do vary. We try to provide a little bit of something for everyone.
Thank you so much for sharing. I love that you can be a really any ability and background, and you have programming that can provide for everyone in internship programs. So thank you for sharing. I'll now pass it over to Laura to share more about Goog Teens.
Yes. So similar to what's happening with your institution, Kiona, the Guggenheim does have college and graduate students opportunities. That is not my area of expertise, but we'll kind of drop that link in the chat as well. But similar, it's departmental based and very project-oriented internships for undergrads, graduate students, and some specialized fields like conservation that kind of work in a fellowship model. And then I work with teens in teen programming. So what we're doing is pre-professional programs like an internship to help students kind of get in the door and really gain exposure to museums and really an early dabble. Maybe they've attended one of our bigger events like our teen nights or our drop-in programs. And they've learned that they want to learn more about the behind the scenes of the museum. It's kind of a cohort model. So our students come together and they work together on individual projects. So it's a little bit different from our college-aged interns that are kind of working more one-on-one on a project with their internship supervisor. This is more a group of about 5 students working with a mentor on a collaborative project for our teens. And that is an academic year program. So the application for this fall just closed, but it'll open again next fall. We also have a summer kind of internship or an externship, kind of a shortened internship program that we do each summer. It's called Art Detectives, and it's for New York City high school students to explore conservation and cultural heritage science, which opens in the spring. Yeah, we'll be happy to share those links, and yeah, excited to talk more.
Thank you, Laura. Yes, the link should be able to be seen in the chat, and I will follow up with everyone following today's program with links to each of these institutions' programs. Now I'm really interested in hearing a bit more about your own internship experiences while you were, making your way into the arts and culture field. So I'm going to kick it back over to Kiona. You can give us some insight into your kind of like pathway and experience with internships and maybe how it influenced the way you run internship programs now.
Yeah. As a high schooler, I didn't do any internships, and I do wish that a lot of the opportunities that I learn about now have been things that were on my radar, because I absolutely would have love to participate. And I think that it would have been really beneficial to me in thinking about, what my pathway is. So first I'll start by saying that in college, I was not at all on a path where I thought I would be working in a museum. Like, I didn't go to college and say, I'm going to learn to be a historian and I'm going to work in a museum. I was actually a biology major. And so I wanted to very much be into science. I wanted to do epidemiology. And then I had to take, as an undergraduate, a mandatory history class. And that history class was so interesting to me. And I was just really engaged with everything that was happening. And so I made history my minor. And so it wasn't until my junior year, when the sciences got really intense, that I decided that I really enjoyed the history aspect of what I was studying more. And so I was a little bit behind the curve of a lot of my colleagues who had been in history majors since the beginning, who had already been set up for internships and for the like, and I was just trying to catch up. So my first internship when I was in college actually came through my career center at school, and it was working as a teaching assistant in a neighborhood high school within a social studies class. So it was set up through National History Day. So helping to support the students as they prepare their projects for National History Day, teaching them best practices for research and so on and so forth. And I really enjoyed that experience of helping people learn history, but I did not enjoy the classroom experience. So I knew from that I did not want to go into teaching. It wasn't something that really worked well within my field of interest. So my next internship was actually through a project that I had during my senior year. We worked at the Bound House in Flushing, and I was able to kind of come back and work with them on a more separate basis, which led into my internship at the Museum of Jewish Heritage. And in that internship, I spent time both in classrooms and in the museum, and it was really eye-opening for me to get a fuller experience of what does it look like to actually apply the information that we want students to experience in the museum into the classroom. So the internship was comprised of a pre-visit to the classroom, a visit to the museum, and then a post-visit. So I really got to create a rapport with these students and really get them excited about visiting the museum. And that was something that really was exciting to me, to see how excited they were to come into the museum. And so it really made me think, how can I be a part of this long term, that even if you don't have this preparation before and after to provide programming or to be into touch with schools and students to get them excited to be in a museum. So the background was really where I saw myself. And I worked in with the Museum of Jewish Heritage. My internship actually led to a job with them for a short time. And so those were some of the internships that were really most transformative for me, because they helped me to get a sense of a field and a career path that I really didn't see myself in as a history major. It was like, you can be like hardcore historian, you research and you write books, you be a professor, and that's it. And I was like, well, there has to be something else. Like, what else is around? And one of the things that really influences the way that our program runs today from my internship experience is that I felt like I was doing something. I didn't feel like I was just showing up to like sharpen pencils or make copies, which even if I was doing something like that, it felt in service of a larger thing. And so my goal for every internship that we offer is that it provides a robust experience, that you don't just feel like a body in the room, but you feel like someone who has a stake in what's happening. So I try to make sure that all of our programs offer some type of educational component first and foremost, but also some type of skills building component, so that you feel like you can do marketing, or you feel like you can write a program, or you feel like even just you're more comfortable engaging with other people. There has to be some kind of built-in goal at the end that's not just, I was at the museum and I did something, but something that really is tangible for your experience going forward. And I have had, other experiences where I did not get that, and it was like, why am I here? So really feeling like I was a part of what was happening, like a stakeholder in that department or in that role, was really important for me, and greatly influences the program today.
Thank you so much for sharing that. A lot of what you said resonates with me as well. I also was a bio major up until my junior year, and ended up in the arts as well. So I think something you touched on is really important to note for folks who are just looking into different internship programs and such. But something you spoke about was just trying out different backgrounds and programs and departments throughout your experiences that kind of helped mold like which direction you would go in, when you had all of these different like experiences in school and different majors and such. So I think that's a great tip just for folks to note on, which I know we'll touch on later. But I'm going to ask Laura the same thing. Can you talk a bit more about your experiences and how it's influenced the way you run an internship program now?
Yeah, and I'm with you, Kiona and Addison. I wasn't a bio major, but I was like a communications and tech major, thinking I wanted to go into journalism. And then my classes, my first 2 years of college, were all about like technology and how TVs worked, and I just wasn't interested. I happened to study abroad my sophomore year. It's my first time doing something like that. And where I was in the world, there was a lot of museums and a lot of touring. So I was going in museums for really the first time in my life. I'm not someone who grew up in museum spaces or my family going to them. And me like thinking that's something I can do on a given day. So it was really college where I learned not only that I didn't want to be a journalist major because I wasn't interested, but I really gained like entry into museums and started going in these spaces and just realized that it just kind of felt right. The spaces felt inspiring for me. When I was taking my first art history course, I just didn't like, the information was sticking in my head and I was enjoying it. So I also switched my junior year and felt like I was a little bit behind. So I immediately kind of reached out over the summer to my local museum, which was the Crocker Art Museum in Sacramento. And I asked about doing an unpaid internship. And this is 10 years ago, everyone. So thankfully there's been a lot of changes in the field. But I took that internship and I, worked every morning as a lifeguard, and then would drive across town like hair dripping wet to do this unpaid internship and make it work for a summer. And I learned a lot. It's a smaller institution, and definitely like I'm sure their internships have changed, of course. But it taught me a lot. Just kind of really the first time to really dive into the subject matter. I was helping in the education department, and mostly with families and like really young families. And it showed me that it was a little bit too removed from the artwork for me. So though we were in the galleries, it was kind of more focused on just kind of really, really early, like kind of pre-K, and like getting really small children into the museum space and their families connecting, which I did love, but I realized it was a little bit too removed from the artwork for me. So the next year I applied to paid internships. Went to undergrad in Los Angeles area. So the Getty Center's Getty Multicultural Undergraduate Internship was a great program. And there's a lot of similar models of institutions or foundations or even universities that are able to pay you to do an internship at a smaller org. So that's exactly what I did. I interned at a historical house in Los Angeles, but was paid through the Getty Center. And I was in curatorial, and it was really nice too. It was the complete opposite of my former internship. I was in with objects all day long, maybe a little too long, kind of like dealing with old dusty material and not seeing enough people. So I was just, acting like Goldilocks there, and just finding out from each internship, what I really didn't look forward to when I showed up, or what I really did like at the end of it. That's kind of one main thing that I definitely want to share throughout our time together today, just like reflecting throughout these internships and taking the learning lessons forward. So for me now, both of those kind of experiences, when I came to the Guggenheim and was working with Addison and really thinking about teen programs at the Guggenheim, we didn't want to inherit any of like the stereotypes or like bad things you think of, connotations of internships. Like there's things that we can let go of. And that took reminders to our staff. So reminding our staff, like, what are the best mentors you had, and having them meditate on the positive things. People often said, like, people that just would give them feedback, gave them time and attention, really let them take on projects, and really emphasize that this internship should be a learning opportunity for the student, not just additional help. Sometimes that's in it, because all of us in our full-time jobs also have those little things. But yeah, so really running with just what are the positive things, and what do internships need to be providing for you all for the next generation at this moment. So we really kind of landed on paid opportunities, a lot of different entry points for students to bring in their interest, because everything that we as humans bring into, museum spaces and other spaces, we're bringing valuable skills and assets, even as we're still developing them as students. So we really want to emphasize like interns as experts, bringing excellence into our space, and us being a space where they can kind of explore ideas and get paid and still learn. And then just kind of being there for continued support. So being there as someone who can, invite them to drop-in programs afterwards, still be a way to connect them to college programs, write those letters of rec. So really have kind of internships almost be like an entry to, hopefully a longer connection if that's beneficial, and we're totally okay if people have that elsewhere. But if you don't have that, then we want to make sure our internships are not just kicking you out the door on the last day.
Thank you for sharing that, Laura. Yeah, I definitely see some things you touched on there, just resonating with Kiona's experience too, just trying out all these different opportunities, whether you thought they were something you'd be interested in and that turned out you weren't, and that helped guide you to where you are now, or vice versa. So I think that's great to just encourage folks to, yes, paid opportunities always. I'm glad that's a shift we are seeing in the field more and more now. Internships should be paid, but I think this leads into kind of like our next question, which is, where do you suggest folks start looking for internship opportunities, whether it's at your institutions or others, and what to look for in a posting? And I'm going to kick that over to Kiona.
Yeah, on the college side, I would say the best place to start is with your career center and with your professors. See what opportunities are already in place for you, because that cuts out 75% of the work. If you already can find out these opportunities that are set aside for students at your school, or connections that your career center or professors have. We have a number of collegiate partners that we work with that we offer opportunities that are open only to, for example, one of our partnerships is with Fordham. And so whereas our internships can typically see upwards of 75 to 100 people applying for one position, now you're only competing against like the 10 other people that are in your major, which makes it so much more likely that the opportunity can be, available to you. So I always suggest starting there. The other thing that I would say is to take a look at organizations like Museum Hue, take a look at some of the very specific museum organizations, to their job boards to see what they are posting, because I post to a number of different job boards that are specific to the arts. New York Foundation for the Arts is one of them. Every now and then I'll post to Idealist, which is very much centered towards nonprofits. So check with those places. The more places that you can look that kind of make sure that the opportunities you see are in line with what you're looking for cuts down on a lot of the searching that you have to do, because the searching is so overwhelming. I get it, certainly. And so you want to take some of that work out of what you're doing, and then just go to your network. Ask your friends, what internships have you done that are really interesting and exciting? Ask anyone that you have, a professor that you really enjoyed, do you know of any opportunities that might be available? Because having people who can guide you towards some of these opportunities that maybe aren't advertised yet or aren't things that you might consider are really important. So that I would say that those are my suggestions for when you're starting that process of looking for an internship.
Thank you for sharing that. And then Laura, at maybe the student level or teen level, do you have any suggestions on where students should look for opportunities in this process?
Yeah, I think a lot of them are similar. Always reach out to, counselors and teachers at your schools that are connected, especially, in the fields that you're hoping to get connected to. So if you're looking into, arts programs, try checking with your art teacher. Also just other students. Kiana, you mentioned this as well, but I know I benefited throughout high school and college by always just speaking to my friends, upperclassmen, siblings of friends, to really hear about what their experiences they were currently doing or looking forward to. So I always kind of had a radar of like, okay, that's not on my radar for this year because I'm focusing on, whatever I'm doing my sophomore year, but I want to be thinking about X or Y or Z program when I get to senior year. So I think it's always great to, especially also, look to your peers, and keep a running list of kind of what's of interest to you. Check those job boards, check with your teachers. And there's a lot of resources and opportunities just even on social media nowadays, a lot of like curated pages for these kinds of opportunities. Happy to share some after. But yeah, I would say just like look broadly. And Addison, did we also ask in this question what to look for in a posting? Yeah, okay, then I can speak on that a little bit too. Because I think that's something like really look broadly. So if you're really interested, in an internship in a museum because you're interested in curatorial, there's also other, industries and other spaces besides museums that also do curatorial. So you may want to check broadly and really look closely at descriptions because, it may be like a university that has a curatorial position that would actually really align with you. So always be able to look broadly, and in a posting, I would say look for something ideally that is a paid opportunity, especially if you are doing work for the institution, you should be, paid for your work. Look for a posting that's really emphasizing that they want someone to be able to learn. So a space that's really open to your what you're bringing to the internship and really wants this to be an experience for you, I think is really important to look for. Yeah, if you're seeing internships that have been reposted for many years, or if you see on their website that they have, years of different cohorts, that's also really great because that will connect you to like a broader network. And there's a good amount of internships. Like I am an alum of, like I mentioned, the Getty's Multicultural Undergraduate Internship. A lot of internships nowadays are sometimes opportunities that really keep you connected for life. So they'll have alumni opportunities for you to still participate in. They'll have kind of kind of summer seminars. Like the Brooklyn Museum does a really good, really wonderful kind of like full New York City and beyond. Interns are invited to come to kind of learn and reflect together over the summer. So I would look for ones that have really rich learning opportunities, both within their department, but maybe connected to these broader networks, either during your internship or after, just because the more learning and exposure and networking, the better.
Yes, I'm also seeing the chat. Alumni opportunities are essential for continuing your network building. Agreed. And something you both touched on was making sure that internship posting really matches what your goals are. And I think that's very important. I know it can be, you sometimes when you want, I know I was like this when I was looking for an internship, I was just applying to everything because I just wanted to be in a art space. But when you look at the fine print and the details, and like you said, Laura, really checking like, is this an ongoing internship program? Is there a network there? What are, word of mouth, asking other people who maybe have worked at the institution before, whether it's a museum or a gallery or university, whatever it may be, just, getting that feedback, because at the end of the day, you want to be in a position where you are also happy, you're going to be in this for a few months, a year sometimes, and you want to make sure that it's, mutually beneficial. You are doing the work for the organization. You want to make sure you're, appreciated and such. So I think that's something that I want to highlight for students as well. You deserve to also have a good experience in an internship opportunity. And so moving
Can I add on to
yeah,
that as well? I
absolutely.
want to absolutely echo paid internships. You deserve to be compensated for your work. But another suggestion that I would give is, as you're looking at posts, take a look at it and see if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense to you, even in writing about what it is, the odds are that when you get into the internship, if you're awarded it, it probably won't make sense then either. So I always just encourage anyone who's applying to take a look, like, what are they telling me? What are they asking me? Is this clear? Because if you're not taking the time to even make the posting clear, then what does that say about how you'll engage with your intern, or how you will be able to find concrete responses about anything when you're actually in the position? So when you're looking at them, even if it seems like a really great opportunity, just think a little bit about, are they giving me a foundation of information that will be useful for me going into this?
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And something else that kind of sparked something in my mind was that you touched on, Kiona, was when you're looking at a posting, you're looking at, what the deliverables will be, or what your, maybe your day-to-day will look like, making sure that also aligns with your future professional goals. I know you might not know what you want to do yet, but just making sure that there's some transferable skills there that you can really, that they're highlighting, that you can, gain from the internship opportunity, that you can kind of transfer elsewhere, no matter what career path you go into. But Kiona, I'm really interested in hearing from you about the application process and what at the New York Historical Society, and what students should expect when applying, when the best time to apply is. I know you mentioned there's a few different opportunities, so I'm just wondering what the application and evaluation process looks like for your organization.
Yeah, our applications tend to be open for around a month. They all require essentially the same thing. So we don't like to have varying degrees of requirements for different internships. So they all request a cover letter, a resume, 2 letters of recommendation, and then a 5 to 10 page writing sample, or some type of, if you're like for graphic design, a portfolio. They're all indicated in the application information. And essentially, it is just an opportunity for us to see a little bit about who you are on the resume, and then in the cover letter to learn a little bit about what drew you to this position. What is it that you feel this position will be able to offer you as an individual, as a student, as an emerging professional? Where do you see this fitting into your longer term goals. And then all of our applications are done via a platform called Interfolio. So it's all an online interface. You upload those materials, and then we review them as a team. So the person who you'll be working with most directly is the person looking at your application. So you don't have to worry about it changing a bunch of hands in between. It's going directly to the person who is most informed about what the role entails, and therefore able to make the best decision about who would be the ideal candidate for this. And I provide support along the way for the supervisors who are doing this review of applications, because we ask for the same information across the board, and we don't ask for any additional information to be submitted, such as, additional documents or anything, in a way that would make perhaps someone who is a freshman versus a junior appear too differently just by the type of information that you have to provide. And then after the application process, typically we only do one interview. We don't make you come for rounds and rounds and rounds of interviews, which is frustrating if you're applying for a job, but equally so applying for an internship. We try to make it as streamlined of a process as possible. And within 3 weeks after the close of the internship, we do provide an update to all of the applicants about the status of your application.
Thank you for sharing that. And then Laura, I'm wondering what that process and evaluation is like for the Goop Teens program.
Yeah, so similar, we have like a call for applications. If anyone's interested beforehand, we kind of gather contact information, and we always share it with students that have reached out and are looking for opportunities. And the written application is really short, but we are asking what specifically, why do you want this internship? And I think looking at, just as like a tip for you all, I think applications truly are opportunities for all of us, whether it's job opportunities or internship opportunities or, awards or paper proposals. They're opportunities for us to really reflect on where we're at, and if it actually is a good fit. So when I'm reading applications for our program, I'm really looking for, has the student read the program description? And do they know what this program is? Because if you're using language or phrases from the program description, I know, okay, you read this and this is what you want. If you're, researching our site, it's never a bad idea to kind of look at kind of the broader institution. So what are the values and what's the mission of that museum? Maybe what are some current priorities? It's never bad to kind of like really research the place you're looking at and kind of see some of their key, what's like some key things that have been in the news about them, or some like longstanding things that they're known for, or that they're like built on, like their mission statement, to have that language in. But really don't try and shoehorn yourself into that institution or the internship if it's not working. Like really reflect on that posting and find the ways that you intersect, because there's usually a way that it will connect. And if it's not, maybe that's not the right internship for you, and that's okay. There's always more. And then our process after the short written application, we are reviewing it based on the skills that are needed in the program. So our program's really collaborative and requires a lot of teamwork. So we're asking questions based upon that in the interview or in the application. So always flex your skills, be transparent about what you want to grow in, because we all know no one has to be perfect yet, but real self-awareness shows like really great professionalism. So just really being transparent about the skills that you're bringing, because you are, and we're excited about that. Maybe some areas that are tangible and that you can really grow in. So if you kind of pin down that, communication or an exploration of, curatorial studies to determine if that's the field you want to go into. If you have something like that we think we can help you with, that's really great, because it lets us know that, this may be a successful program for you and you may enjoy your time, because we can help you solve that question in this time frame. So something, you know, bite-sized that you can take, a transferable skill that you want to work on. And then we do a short interview process as well. Ours are group interviews. And I think this is something all of us have kind of touched on too, in addition to like kind of the content of the internship. If you're meeting people in an, you know, job interview or internship interview, just kind of vibe out the people too. And of course, everyone's different. Sorry, I have a dog barking in the background. You know, you can't judge someone just on a first interview because we're all different and, you know, in different settings. But definitely kind of vibe out personalities, and if this is a space where it's feeling right or if it's not feeling right for you, just even kind of personalities gelling. But always know that like it's okay, you can work with people that have different personalities from you. So don't feel like you have to change to kind of be like the interviewee or anyways, energy wise or interest wise. Because during an entire internship you're going to be with, yes, your internship supervisor a lot, but hopefully you'll be meeting a lot of different coworkers, a lot of people from other departments in the break room. So you'll be around a lot of people, and yeah, being able to kind of reflect on the people you're with and the overall opportunity to make sure it works for you and feels right. It's always a great idea.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, something you touched on that I think is also important to highlight that you both touched on is that internships are really opportunities for growth. You know, I think we can all say when we've been reviewing applications and such, we're not looking necessarily for someone who knows it all and is ready to like, you know, come in. That's amazing. But I think that's something I have felt when I was a student applying to internships. I was like, they're never going to take me. I don't know anything. But I'm like, I'm applying because I'm there to learn. So I think that's something important for you all to know too, that it's okay to not know everything and to try out different things and use those transferable skills. And I've taken internships before where I was like, am I really interested in this? I don't know. And I love this. And now these skills I have to pivot and transfer. So you never know, you know, what you'll end up on and what you'll enjoy. But I think it's good to, just when you're applying to things, to be transparent. And it's an opportunity in the application or interview to really highlight yourself and your personality, and just like you said, kind of gauge out what does the group feel like, the interviewer, you know, are you vibing, are you matching that? So I think that's great to highlight. And then I want to open the next question up to both of you. Do you have any advice on what students can include to really stand out in an application? I know it's something you kind of both touched on, but can you go a little deeper if there's anything that you come across when you're reviewing hundreds of applications, you know, is there any advice you would give to people to stand out? And then also, do you have any recommendations for how many internships students should apply to? I'll start it off with Kiona.
When it comes to how many, all of them, just apply. I mean, it only increases your chances, and I would say don't limit yourself either, you know, to saying like, oh, this is one where all of my skills perfectly align. This is one where, you know, everything, I check every box, it checks every box. Because one of the things that I've learned working in a museum is that you do it all. So no matter what your role is, you're doing development, you are doing education, you're doing this, you're doing that. And so if a position kind of strikes your interest and you feel like you could learn something from it, apply to it. Because if you go down this path, you're doing everything. I'm shocked every day by how much of my job entails many different aspects of museum work. So apply to all of them. Maybe you'll get lucky and you'll get 3 of them, you know, that say we want, you know, you to come on board, and then you can make a decision about which one works the best for you. I don't think you should limit yourself when you apply. And even for us at the New York Historical Society, a lot of times people will ask, can I apply for multiple positions um in the same cycle? Yeah, of course, like apply to as many as you want. And then, you know, that decision is something that you don't need to think about right now. You can find out more about the opportunity, see where you fit, where it might be a great chance for you. And then you can, you know, decide from there. And then I think that similar to what Laura said, showcasing that you read the description. I can't tell you how many cover letters in particular we get that are carbon copies of something that I know that you've sent to Google and you sent it here and you sent it there. Make sure that it is something that is tailored to match the position. And I tell my interns all the time, make a Google Doc, make some like sections where you can interchange whatever it is that you want to, but go on that website, find out something about the mission of the museum, look more into that department, look more into this. So that way you can create this connection with the reader, because by the time you're done looking at a stack of them, you are thinking about the person who said, oh yeah, I remember reading about this and I would love to be involved in this. Make sure that you are showcasing that you connect, and likewise with your resume too. Make sure that your resume is something that is highlighting the skills that are requested in that posting. So that way, when we're looking at it, we can say, oh, they're highlighting already why they are the best person for this job, because when they were a barista, they learned how to work in a fast-paced environment. And I know that if I'm hiring an intern who's going to be working with 3-year-olds, you need to be able to move in a fast-paced environment. You know, all of the ways that you can highlight the skills that you have and that you're presenting in that posting, in your cover letter, in your resume, what have you. Think about all of the ways in which you can make this personal connection through the screen for the person that's reading it. You know, make them want to know more about you. I think that's the important thing. And again, I don't think that you need to, you know, start from scratch every single time, because that is so time consuming, and that can just be a burden unto itself. But find the places where you can add in this interchanging information about what it is. And make sure your name is on everything. Don't submit anything that is incomplete. Make sure all of the information that the person needs to contact you is present. I can't tell you how many times we get submissions where it's not abundantly clear, like, how do I get in touch with you? If I want to interview you, you've sent this really great cover letter and I just have your name. I don't have your email address. I don't have a phone number. There's no way I can get in touch with you. And make sure that when you submit an application, it's complete. Just submitting, you know, a couple of things and not making sure that you have submitted all of the requirements that are being asked for in that application. Those are really the two easiest ways to make sure that the person who's reviewing your materials is looking at you and saying, okay, yes, this person took time to read the posting. They took the time to make sure that the application packet that they're submitting was complete and aligned with what is being requested of you. Just those simple things make a big difference in terms of the person who's reviewing those applications and those materials.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that. Just double, triple checking that everything is complete, because like you said, you know, sometimes you're looking at hundreds, thousands of applications, and it can be a 10 out of 10 application, but you don't have that one simple detail that really will, you know, put you in the other pile and you make you miss out on the opportunity. I'm seeing in the chat, Sierra says, my programming dream is to share the application mistakes I and others, like the other presenters, yes, have made over the years in a row. 100%. I have definitely applied to internships where they're like, hey, Addison, you didn't send us your resume. And I'm like, oh no, I'm already out. So definitely just part of the learning journey. Laura, do you have anything to add on this topic to stand out as an applicant at all?
I completely agree with everything you said, Fiona. And especially like, you don't want to start from scratch every time. Nowadays, we have AI. If you can use, you know, AI to your ability to help you with the draft, that's totally great. We know we're also telling you, like, apply to as many as possible. So, you know, take care of yourself and your timing and use these tools, but kind of really step back from the cover letter, from the application, and really think about, okay, what are some simple tweaks I can make to make this personal for this institution, for me and this particular role. So it doesn't have to be from scratch every time, and we can use technology. That's kind of my main thing. And I've definitely made mistakes while applying for stuff, and like being nervous and pronouncing things wrong and getting stumbled. So I think yeah, we've kind of mentioned throughout, but just really being reflective and kind of showing that you are, you know, someone who is reflective and goal oriented, is going to help you just in the, minute by minute and week by week of the work, but overall like a long-term project. So really showing that you've taken the time to kind of really lay out what you're hoping to learn, kind of something that you're kind of currently working through or thinking about or hoping to do in the future. So it takes some just personal reflection even before you start writing, maybe. But yeah.
Absolutely agreed. And then I know we touched on interview processes a little. I know you both said you do like one interview round. I know Lori said you do group interviews, and Kiona, you said it sounds like you do like one-on-one with a final pool of applicants. Do you have any tips on interview best practices that you've come across, or any tips on like following up? Does that help the folks you're interviewing for an internship? Just wondering if you have any advice for students on that. And I'll start with Kiona.
Yeah, one of the things that we've recently started doing, we piloted it with a couple of positions and are now looking to expand it to all of them, is providing the list of questions that we're going to ask you in the interview upfront. One of the things that is important to consider, particularly on the end of the institution, is that an interview is not like a gotcha. Like you shouldn't be looking to trip someone up or to not give them the opportunity to talk with you and share at their absolute best and most informed. So we've started trying to offer the a general idea of what kind of questions we'll ask you about, if not the specific questions. And it has been something that has been beneficial for both the students and for us as well to think about, we've got this conversation. So that way, when you're telling us these things, you already have had a chance to sit with it and think about what you want to bring to that conversation. And likewise, to look at the questions that we're asking you, maybe that also helps inform what questions you want to ask us, because you definitely want to bring your own questions to the interview. And in line with that, I would not be opposed if someone said, "Oh, thank you for this interview. Can you give me an idea of some questions, that you might be asking during this?" Also, it's easier said than done, but take a breath, take your time, go into the interview feeling as relaxed as you possibly can, because this is a chance for you to come off the screen, if you will. We've read your application. We know a little bit about you. We want to be able to engage with you in person, similarly to, as others have said, to check, do we vibe together? What more are you bringing to this conversation? And I think all of the conversations that I've had with students where I've left them, feeling really excited about them as a candidate is when they bring incredibly thoughtful questions to the interview. To think about what questions you can ask of the hiring committee or the interviewer, that makes you stand out. What do you want to know about this institution? And I don't think there's any wrong question that you can ask either. If you want to bring those hard questions that museums are dealing with, I think that's fine, because it shows that you have taken some initiative and some thought about what does that mean for you as an intern and as an employee of the institution during the time that you're there. So think about how you can get more information about the institution and about how you as an employee and as an intern will be interacting with it during your time there. But just be relaxed. I think that that's one of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give, is that, this is not the end all be all. And you go in, always give it, your best self. Don't feel like if you don't leave this interview feeling like you've hit it out of the park, that you're completely disqualified to begin with, because you don't know what's happening on the other side of that chair. But also think about every interview opportunity as a learning experience. So if you don't feel like it goes so well that first time, think about where you feel that happened and how you might be able to prepare yourself for the next time around, or even if you go to apply for that same position again. Because for us, we often have positions questions that are in line with what we've offered before. And now you know a little bit more about this, and you can come to it and say, you know, last time I was really excited to learn about this, and now I've had a chance to think a little bit more about where I fit into that. And so I'm, you know, bringing that to this experience currently. So that's what I would say. Just be informed, be relaxed, be prepared for the interview.
Yeah, thank you for sharing so many of those tips. I think something that you mentioned that I also want to highlight again is when you bring thoughtful questions, and you had this when you spoke about kind of that transparency side of things, that it's okay as an applicant to ask some tough questions. We know that museums can sometimes be harmful places. They have a history. So I think it's okay to ask some of those, you know, questions. And that also is a good gauge on, you know, how transparent are they going to be with you? You know, that's also a good tell. Like, is this a good fit for you as an applicant for future internship? So thank you for sharing those. And I'll pass it over to Laura for any other tips or tricks for the interview process that you've come across that you really love in your reviewing process.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything both of you have said. Just to kind of emphasize the point that like every interview, every application is a learning opportunity. So that's another reason to cast it wide. You're learning and we're all learning. Like you may really excel at the application and written component, and the interviews may trip you up, and you'll know that as you keep doing them and practicing, and you'll know like what area you'll need to prep for in different ways. So that's another reason just to like cast widely so you can have the opportunities to apply and interview and always reapply. There's a lot, you know, there's only so many positions for folks. And I think staff nowadays are also really cognizant of their bandwidth. And, you know, just as we're saying, like internships ideally are getting better, you know, they're becoming paid opportunities, they're becoming real project oriented opportunities for you, you know, students to really dive in. That limits like how many are available because staff need to be there for attention and to have the budget to pay them. So just know that if you don't get a position, it doesn't reflect on you always. There's so many other factors. You never know. Never think that if you didn't get it, you didn't qualify, because that's not the equation. It's you didn't get it this time, and you can always reapply. It shows us that you're really interested. You know, so being able to share and reapply is always something great. And when you're interviewing, I think, yes, totally, you know, really think about asking questions around your interest, and really, you're there to learn, yes, about maybe a particular type of work and a particular task, but also just like about the field at large and how, you know, people in that industry are doing, thriving or not thriving. So, you know, there's times and places for each of like the harder questions, but really think about in an interview, it's really okay to really, you know, ask things broadly and see where people take it. So if you're asking like, hey, I know like museums are really, you know, having, I've been reading about museums having a lot of challenges serving diverse audiences. Museums are having challenges, you know, with sustainability and supporting environmental justice. What are some, does this touch your role at all? Asking like a broad thing and like seeing where someone goes could be like a really good entry point. You could always like ask people for follow-ups and one-on-ones and coffee times when you're in the internship. So I think yeah, think of the passions that you have and the real questions you have about the industry that you can ask either in the interview or, you know, during the internship itself, to really think about, is the overall space going to work for you?
Thank you for sharing that. Yes, I think these are all really amazing tips. We've been putting them in the chat as well. And we will also be sure to share out both Laura and Kiona's contact info. I do want to give us some space for any questions that any attendees may have. So if you have any questions right now, feel free to drop them in the chat and we can answer them. So we'll give a few moments for that. But while people are ruminating on some questions, Laura and Kiona, do you have any other last tips or tricks that we didn't get to touch on that you just really want to ensure students know right now, or anything like changing in the field that you're seeing? Either of you, we can have an open combo now if you prefer.
I guess one thing that we haven't touched on too much is a lot of internships nowadays. Kiona, I don't know about your institution, you'll have to share, are kind of like in these kind of cohort models. So you'll be learning with other interns, which is really great. Sometimes to be connected to other, students that are in a similar life phase and exploring things. So I think that if that's something you're going to be doing in the internship, like really sharing, like, that's something you're excited about. I'm excited to apply to your internship at your institution because you have a cohort of 5 interns that really get to learn together. It's always great to know that folks are excited about, like, not just being in, X museum, but you're also excited to like be learning with the other folks because you're probably going to be doing that even more often than like exploring the galleries at some museums. So I would say, like, think about think about who you're going to be working with most on a daily basis. And if there's other, peers that you're going to be working with, kind of flex how you've worked with peers before and share an excitement for that. Or if you're an individual person and this is a individual internship, be sure to share, like, that's something that you found that you really thrive at, and that's why you're looking at this internship. So
Yeah, I agree. Our internships, it varies. In the fall and the spring, it's much more independent because there's no set schedule. But in the summer, it is a much more cohort-based model. And what we have been very fortunate to do, one of the things that I found really born out of being virtual was more opportunities to connect with cohorts at other institutions. And so giving interns a chance to not just learn from others who are at those institutions, but other interns. And so building these much larger cohorts of New York City based interns is something that I have been really excited about. And I think that our interns have really benefited from that.
yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Oops, go ahead.
Go ahead, Addison.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, I think that's really interesting. A lot of the different models that are at different institutions now for internship models. And yeah, a lot of them now like have these cross pollinations with other museum institutions and other, interns at different organizations. I think that's also really interesting. And you get to learn a lot just from learning, like that peer learning aspect of internship. So that's something that I think is great to look for when you're looking at different opportunities as well.
Yeah.
But what were you going to say, Laura?
No. Happy to take any questions too, but I guess a couple of other things that I don't want to forget, like eat lunch in the public areas, or like, ask people to walk to the subway together if they want to. Like, don't be offended if people like don't want to, because some people just need to chill out and do their own thing at lunch or on their way home. But it's always great to, like, in an internship, yes, you're working on a project a lot of the day. So sometimes those like third spaces, communal spaces where you're able to talk from people from way other departments is always really nice, just to like get an overall vibe at the museum or whatever space you're in. So that was one thing. And I also didn't want to forget to say, like, ask for feedback throughout in an internship. So we talked a lot about kind of like the applications and getting into the internship and reflecting on who you are so you know how to apply the right ones. And I think internships are changing and they're learning to, have it be an opportunity for students to really grow and learn and reflect. If that's not the case, or if things get swept up, like, you have the right to ask ongoingly for feedback on how you're doing, like on a particular project, especially as you're getting started, to check-ins throughout and reflect at the end of your internship. It's never bad to, like, just get some feedback from someone, so you know where to go next and what to look for next, but also so they remember you. So if you're able to, on the last week of the internship, ask your supervisor for a coffee and just to kind of reflect on the year, and you're able to tell them, like, hey, remember when I did this amazing thing, and remember when I struggled with this one thing but I overcame it, they'll remember that. They'll remember your highlights, so they'll be able to write you a recommendation at some point, and you'll be able to like summarize your experience so you know what to write in your next application. So I would say reflect and ask for feedback throughout, and especially at the end.
Absolutely. That is so, so important. And that goes back to the building up that network and such, because you never know who you're going to meet across any of your experiences and opportunities, who you'll come across later. And it is a small world out there too, which it doesn't feel like it, but you may do something when you're in undergrad, and then you're, trying to look for a job, and you're like, oh, hey, this person knows a friend of a friend, or they'll be like, oh, I remember, so-and-so really thrived at this, they'd be great for this opportunity. So I think it's great just to keep those networks alive. And I know when we worked on teen programs, sometimes at the end of an interview or the end of the program, students would reach out and send like a little thank you follow-up. And that's something I tried to do also in careers and also in internships, was just sending that out. And that's something I think that makes an impact on folks too. You're just building up that relationship and keeping it going. Because yeah, like you said, Laura, you never know when you can use someone for a reference letter, or they'll really be able to speak to your character.
I wanted to add as well that we talked a lot about, seeing how you kind of vibe with the position. And if it seems like everything is great to start and then you get in it and you're like, wow, this is the worst thing ever, that's okay. Like, that's a very valid experience in an internship. Like, every internship is not going to be something that you see yourself doing for the rest of your life. And there's no better time to find out what you hate than when you're getting paid for it and you only have to do it for 10 weeks. Like, that's the beauty of internships as well. So much to find out what you do like as well as what you don't like. And if you find that you're in it and it's not what you envisioned, as long as it's not like a situation where it is, something personally against you, but if it's just the job and role itself, that's fine. You find that this is a position that doesn't work for you, and you know that you never want to do that again. So if you can find those places where you can also decide what you don't like and what you don't want to do and be informed about that, that's perfectly okay. I think internships are a part of the learning experience in the way that they give you the good and the not so great of things that help inform your career path. So just wanted to share that too.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I think that's super, super important and very valid. Like you said, yeah, there's most times internships are for a short amount of time. So even if it's, dragging on day to day, at least now you're collecting more information. And yes, now we're getting paid to do it. We want to highlight that paid opportunities. I don't want to keep us on too long, and I don't see any other questions in the chat, but I did drop in both of our speakers' contact information and the institutions they work at. I want to sincerely thank both Laura and Kiona for sharing their expertise and their personal journeys and internship experiences, and now your professional opinions and advice as internship interviewers and program runners. So thank you so much for sharing with all of us today. I want to encourage people joining today to reach out with any other questions you may have to Museum Hugh or our panelists as well. And thank you all for attending the conversation. I do want to flag our next program will be on Wednesday, December 6th from 5:30 to 7. And that will be all about networking and relationship building best practices. So really building on a lot of the things we touched on today. We will have Diana Simmons, the Director of Social Impact from the Whitney Museum, and Chayla Surratt, one of our Hugh Arts Advisory Committee members, who will be sharing their advice and expertise on networking best practices. So if you have not already considered membership, we encourage you to. For early Hewers, it's $20 for the year, and you get access to all these recordings and different resources and free admission to all of our upcoming events. So please stay tuned. But thank you all so much again for joining us today, and I hope to see you on December 6th. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. Let's see. Bye. Let's see. Perfect. Thank you for joining, Sierra. Have a great afternoon. Okay, I'm gonna stop our recording.